What if you can make money from Airbnb without owning any real estate? When I learned how to start an Airbnb business without owning a house, loads of opportunity opened up. Let's find out how. In this video, I'm going to walk you through the 5 things you need to know to launch an Airbnb business without owning any real estate. See, a lot of people think getting into real estate takes a lot of capital, or they've heard that crappy line that says it takes money to make money. I'm actually going to prove right now it doesn't take any money to make money. You just need some good strategy. And in the Airbnb world, you can actually Airbnb places that you don't own, but you have to know how to do this, how to navigate it, and how much money you can actually earn. You do this by creating rental arbitrage. What is rental arbitrage? The word arbitrage basically means taking commodities from one market and selling them in another. Well, how does that apply to real estate? You can actually Airbnb properties in which you do not own. So you can go to a landlord or a property manager, you can rent out a property, and you can place that property on vacation rental sites like Airbnb, VRBO, or even Furnish Finders. These sites help people find properties just like yours in cities that they're visiting. And you can rent properties and never own them. Here's what this looks like. So you go to a landlord, you rent out a property just like you would if you were going to move into an apartment. Now you have to be careful here. Some places don't allow this and some do. So you're going to have to look for the places that allow this. We'll chat about that in a minute. Most people that use this are seeking to make about $1,000 per unit per month. So they're trying to rent a property out for $1,000 a month and make around $2,000 a month in Airbnb income. And you cannot believe this actually happens all the time. Now you can turn properties you own into Airbnb or vacation rental properties, but you can also not own any real estate and do the exact same thing. Airbnb and VRBO and these vacation rental sites have allowed a lot of people to get into real estate without owning any real estate at all. It's the same as the Uber principle. It allowed a company to give rides to people in which they don't own any cars. And this can happen with you as well. So what you want to do is look in your area or in an area where people travel, and you're going to look for properties that are for rent those up, and then you can Airbnb those or VRBO those to people who want to live in your space for a short period of time. Now here's the upside. The upside of doing this is number one, you don't have to get banks. You have no loans to get, so if you have bad credit or you don't have the loan power or you don't have high income, you can rent a place, Airbnb it, even if you don't have the bank power to do so. That's one of the powerful elements are leveraging Airbnb properties that you don't own. You don't have to go to banks. Another upside is you need very little capital. If you're buying a multifamily property for $1 million, you need to come up with $200,000 to $300,000 for down payments and closing costs. Whether you raise that money from investors or that comes from your pocket, you're still gonna have to come up with that money. When you rent a property, you usually only have to come up with the security deposit and the first month's rent. So depending on where the Airbnb is, you might have to come up with a few $1,000s or $5,000 or less in order to get the security deposit, the first month's rent, and then you're off to the races. So it's extremely low capital in order to leverage this specific idea. The biggest downside is there's no upside, right? The upside in real estate is we leverage the appreciation. As a property increases in value, that's really where we earn our wealth. So Airbnb is a great place to earn income. It's a bad place to build wealth because building wealth comes through appreciation. So the downside of this method is it'll give you some passive cash flow, which that's great, but you won't get the upside, which really takes the spike in your net worth. When we sell some of our multifamily properties, sometimes our net worth, my personal net worth, will go up a couple hundred to even $1 million. Well, when your net worth is spiking like that, you can really fast forward your wealth and your ability to invest in properties or invest in real estate. When you're doing Airbnb, it's going to give you great, consistent monthly cash flow, but it's not going to give you the upside because you're not going to sell that property. And because there's no upside, the second downside is you don't get really to refinance that property. A lot of us that own properties, we eventually refinance those properties and take that capital and go invest it into another deal. Well, if you don't own the property, you obviously can't do that. So really the biggest downside is not getting that appreciation and being able to leverage that for more deals. But it's a great way to leverage some properties and really start making cash flow. In order to do this, you also have to know where to look. Where's a good place to start leveraging this project? Because if you get an Airbnb in the middle of no-name Iowa, you're probably not going to have very many visitors. So we have to know there's a couple metrics here that we look for in order to know it's going to be a great place to Airbnb. But where do you actually look in order to find properties to do this this with? Well, you know what's cool about this is you literally have to rewind, or maybe you are a current renter. You look in the same places renters look to find apartments or look to find places to rent. You look in those exact same places because really you are a renter in this model. You're renting a space and then Airbnb-ing that space or turning that space into a vacation rental. So you look at the same place everybody looks to rent places. You go to apartments.com, which is one of the biggest online platforms that market properties for rent. You can also look at some social media platforms, Facebook Marketplace, or even go old school and go Craigslist, because there's still people, me included, that market their rentals on Craigslist. You can go to any type of social media platform that has a hub where you can find landlords that are marketing their properties for rent. Oh, and guess what? If you live in a destination area, every time you're driving around and you see a for rent sign, start seeing dollar signs. Call that up. You just got a lead, right? So this is another great way to find properties. Oh, you like to vacation. Great. When you're driving around Orlando, Florida, guess what? Look for rent signs. You're looking for money signs, right? So it doesn't have to be in your area, but you can find places all over. Anytime you're in an area or even online, you can look like you're gonna rent a place in that area. So again, make sure you understand that finding places is as simple as renting a place. You literally can go to places that renters go. Another great place to go is property management websites. Most legit property management companies on their website will have a portal where renters can go and see their available units. You can do that as well. You just simply have to turn into a renter once again, or if you're a current renter, stay in that renter mindset and say, how can I start finding these properties to rent? Before we go on to our next few tips, make sure you subscribe to this channel for tons more content on buying real estate, investing, building wealth, earning capital, starting businesses, because we really want to help you grow your wealth by investing correctly and investing smartly. Let's get back to the content. But how do you know if it's a good area to leverage this in? And here's the thing, there's markets and there's submarkets. For example, Atlanta, Georgia would be a great place to own an Airbnb. Tons of people travel there. But there's parts of Atlanta you don't want to have an Airbnb in because it's just not that great of an area. So you want to go market and then you want to go submarket. You want to go to some markets that are great. You go to Orlando, Florida, tons of people travel to Orlando, but there's some areas of town they wouldn't want to be in an Airbnb in because it's just not that safe or it's not that clean. So you want to make sure you're in areas that people want to stay. But how do you do that? I learned this tip a long time ago, and believe me, get out your pen. What you want to look for is hotels. Think about, before Marriott drops a hotel, how many millions of dollars of research do you think they do to see if putting a $6 million building will be a good return on investment? And what are hotels looking for? Traveling people that need a short stay. What are you looking for? The exact same thing. Find Airbnbs around hotels and you have a proven destination that have already been researched that you know people are going to come stay. In fact, we have an 8-unit building in South Bend, Indiana. Who in the world would own a Airbnb in South Bend, Indiana? We actually bought it as student housing. It's right around the Notre Dame campus community. And we thought we'll do student housing because you can get a really good revenue on student housing. And then it hit me. On the same street as our multifamily property that was student housing is 12 hotels. It's right on the 80-90 toll road, and a lot of people stay there. Number one, a lot of people stay there for Notre Dame related events, but a lot of people stay right there. It's only a few hours from Chicago, and it's a great place to stay. Marriott's are there, Hilton's are there, La Quinta's are there, all the major hotel chains are there. And then the light turned on. We should turn this into an Airbnb. We turned that over to an Airbnb, and our average income went from $1,500 to about $2,500 a month by shifting it to an Airbnb right in a location where there was already hotels. Look for hotels. That's where you want to keep your properties. And of course, you want to make sure you're in travel destinations. Don't have Airbnbs in places people don't go. That's a given. But once you go to those travel destinations, make sure you're picking areas that are trusted and true and people actually want to stay. Hotels aren't the only place you can buy Airbnbs. That's a surefire way to win, but you could also go out into good upscale communities where people have houses or there's some higher end duplexes or higher end condos. You can buy condos in that area and continue to rent them out. There's some great Airbnb market where I live in Phoenix, Arizona, and there's not a lot of hotels nearby, but there's Airbnbs everywhere because people love to come to Phoenix, especially in the winter. So this is a great example of there may not be a hotel nearby, but it's an upscale community that people love to bring their families. But one of the biggest questions I get with this model is, Mike, is this legal? Well, the beautiful thing is, yes, it is legal. However, you do need to let your landlord know what you're doing, and you do need to make sure that they do not have a rule against this. Some condo communities and some communities absolutely exclude vacation rentals because they don't want people doing this. So if landlords or property managers don't allow it, move on to the properties that do, because there's a lot of landlords, they just want to make sure the rent is paid and their place is taken care of. I'm that way. I own tons of properties. If somebody wanted to rent a property for me and Airbnb it, I'm okay. I might ask for an extra month of a deposit. Say, okay, if you're gonna do this, you currently have a $1,000 deposit down. I want another deposit down in case somebody trashes the place so that we can fix it up and make sure it's better. But again, as an owner, I'd totally be okay with letting somebody do that. So you just have to find landlords that are friendly to this idea. But I also wanna give you a free tool today, my free 60-minute multifamily masterclass. One of the best things you can do if you do own multifamily or you wanna lock in multifamily is leverage other people's money, get multifamily property, and turn them into Airbnbs. So leverage multifamily property to Airbnbs is another powerful strategy. So click the link in the description and you'll be taken to our free 60-minute training how you can start locking in these amazing multifamily properties.